Please.
Thank you, Acting President. I rise to speak in support of this motion today, which is about bringing parliamentary procedure in the Victorian Parliament into the 21st century and getting rid of an outdated practice that no longer reflects the Victoria we live in today. I thank Ms Patten for moving this motion today and continuing advocacy the Greens began some years ago. The Greens do not enter our respective chambers for daily prayer, a long-standing practice of ours, because we know the prayer is not representative of the Victorian people. And we have advocated for an alternative to the daily prayer for some years, most notably in 2016, when my Greens colleague Sue Pennicue moved a motion to get the Procedures Committee to consider alternatives, a motion which was defeated. Our Parliament represents all of Victoria, and our job as parliamentarians is to represent our electorates and our communities, including ensuring the voices of those who are often silenced or marginalised are heard. But our parliamentary procedures are still stuck in the 19th century, more often than not remnants of our colonial history than our First Nations history and the evolution and diversity of the community since. So while, as many members have noted, beginning a sitting day with a daily prayer reflects the Westminster heritage of our parliamentary system established hundreds of years ago in England, it no longer reflects Victoria today. We are a multicultural, multi-faith community with members from all corners of the world and from all faiths. Many of us have religion other than Christianity or no religion at all. I have to say that I was quite struck and quite shocked when I entered the Victorian Parliament by how backwards it was as an institution in so many ways. You just have to walk through the place to see very clearly that it doesn't reflect modern-day Victoria. I'd previously been in local government, and I can tell you that most of our local councils in Victoria are streets ahead of this place. I was really disappointed to hear the Premier today dismiss this move for reform, saying that it was not on his list and inferring that he had other priorities. But I have more faith in this place than he seems to, because I'm sure we're quite capable of doing multiple things at once. There are others who will dismiss this move as symbolic, but it is more than that. When we signal our push to be more inclusive, it sends a powerful message to the community and starts a ripple of further reforms. You just have to look at the work my Greens colleague, now Senator Lydia Thorpe, began in this place to see how this can happen. She fought for better recognition of First Nations in the Victorian Parliament. She began the practice of standing for the acknowledgement of country in the Assembly, and the Council soon followed. I'm pleased we continue this practice today. At that time, we didn't do the acknowledgement daily, but thanks to that advocacy, we have seen the flow-on effects. The presiding officers have now committed to the wider project of developing a reconciliation action plan, and we really look forward to seeing the outcomes from this process. Part of coming together and growing as a community involves abandoning the traditions and outdated beliefs that no longer make sense. And we've changed a lot about the Parliament since the first sitting back in 1856, as the Victorian community has changed too. Women can now vote and run for office, as can Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. We now begin a sitting week with an acknowledgement of country and a recognition of the traditional owners of this land. It's time we left the daily prayer in the past and embraced a more inclusive opening to a sitting week. The ACT Parliament has already abandoned the tradition of opening a sitting day with a public prayer, instead beginning with a moment of silence where members can pray or reflect on their responsibilities as a Member of Parliament. Other parliaments across the world have similar models in place, including some provinces in Canada and the European Parliament. We feel that a model such as the ACT's is the best way to include all of us in the opening of a sitting week, both all members in this chamber and the wider community. In the lead up to this debate, I received a number of emails about this issue from across the state. The vast majority have supported removing the Lord's Prayer as the formal opening of the sitting day, and instead starting a parliamentary day with a quiet moment of reflection. It's clear that my electorate and my community is ready for this change, and as a representative democracy, that this is the reform that people are asking for. I also wanted to note that the talk of heritage and traditions surrounding this debate completely ignores the heritage and traditions of this country's First Peoples. Our state parliament is essentially a tribute to our colonial history and ceremony, with very little recognition and inclusion of First Nations history or ceremony. Clinging on to the Lord's Prayer is not just excluding many members of our multi-faith community, it's an insult to Victoria's First Nations communities and a reminder that this parliament is not designed for them. I'm sure we've heard a bit, and we will hear more in this debate, about upholding traditions and respecting other religions. But I'll remind the House that some members of this chamber refuse to grant this respect to others. such as by refusing to stand up for the acknowledgement of country every single day. It's disappointing to see that the debate surrounding this motion has become less about embracing the diversity of our community and respecting the many cultures and traditions we have, and more about trying to entrench the position of one religion over the others, and as a result, alienating and othering all those who don't belong to that group. It is, however, typical of the reaction when power is challenged and threatened, and often a sign that change is coming. And just in conclusion, to respond to a couple of matters that have been brought up in the debate, and just in terms of what the Leader of the Government said, that she suspects that most Victorians may not care, I'd actually argue against it and say that if you're not excluded by something, you might not notice it. But if you are excluded daily by a practice or a tradition, you do notice it and you feel it very deeply. So for them, let's give this motion serious consideration. Let's move Parliament into the present day and let's reform and modernise this place. And we hope that a whole set of other reforms follow. Thank you.